Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. You know, it's always nice to be able to share some time and thought with men, especially men of faith and men of character. Three of the guests today that I have are just beautiful, beautiful young men that allow their faith to be an integral part of their lives and everything they do. They're involved in an organization, Catholic Men for Jesus Christ, and the planning of the Catholic Men for Jesus Christ Men's Rally. Be an interesting time to be able to share some thoughts and some wonderful, wonderful gifts of their love. According to their website, the Catholic Men for Jesus Christ was established in 1997. The organization recognizes that true happiness can only be found in Jesus, and that we're not meant to answer his call to follow me all by ourselves. Catholic Men for Jesus Christ strives to bring men together, to build each other up, to support each other, to challenge one another on our spiritual journeys, and to become the men that we're created and called to be. My guests today are very active members of Catholic Men for Jesus Christ. Bill Mayer. God bless you, Bill. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Bill's the president of the organization. He's a husband, father of 7 beautiful children, resides in Millstone Township, New Jersey. He and his family are parishioners of St. Raphael's Parish in Hamilton, New Jersey, and has been involved in numerous ministries over the years, such as men's groups, youth groups, marriage groups. He's a speaker on the topic of marriage, family, and fatherhood. Bill's also the director of Hips Orthopedic Implants for Zimmer Orthopedics and president of Vitae Industries, LLC. Again, Bill, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Monsignor.
George Rose. George Rose has got a long list of things he likes to do.
Thanks, Father.
He's also married, also a father. He's a member of St. Raphael's, also Holy Angels Parish, where he's president of the school board, member of the finance council, and he co-founded a beautiful place called Tabor House, a place where men in some needs, I guess a recovery house in Trenton for drug and alcohol, where they can come and get some help and share. He also works in the Asian operation for the New York Yankees. Being that I'm a Met fan, but that's okay.
I won't hold it against
That's
you,
okay.
Father.
I might steal some of your players. And Father Joseph Jacob, you know, because Father Joseph Jacob's been with us a few times. He's the chaplain at Rider University and Notre Dame High School in Lawrenceville. He's also the Trenton Diocesan Director of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and a member of the Diocese Trenton Vocation Recruiting Committee. Father Jacob, do you have time to relax a little bit with all of those big jobs you have?
Try to.
God bless you. Thanks for being here again, Father. Maybe give us some background about yourselves, and how you all got involved with the Catholic Men for Jesus Christ.
Well, I guess I'll start with
Good,
that, guys.
good,
Several years ago, I actually started helping out Jim Manhart and a couple other members of the team at the time. And incidentally, Jim Manhart, who is the father of Catholic Men for Jesus Christ, was kind of looking to transition out a little bit. And Father Jacob pulled me into one of the meetings at one point and just kind of, I guess the best way of putting this is kind of fell into this role of being part of the board. And from that point forward, we tried to kind of create a professional organization. And I guess that's kind of how I fell into this position, because that's the best way of putting it, falling into it, really.
Seems that so many men that I talk to fall into things because of great young priests. They seem to have a way of just saying, I don't know if you could ask the volunteer, just all of a sudden you're there.
Falling or pushing, I guess, right? Monsignor, I don't know.
which is kind of neat, And yourself, George?
Well, I first went to the rally, I think it was in 2003 or 2004, and that year Joe Klecko was the speaker.
Oh, sure.
And Chris Smith also spoke, and Becky Blonsky from Madonna House out in Neptune. And I was captivated when I heard them speak. It was such an uplifting day. And Joe Klecko talking about trying to pray more rosaries in a day than Padre Pio does. That's his goal in life. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. I don't think I even knew Joe Klecko was Catholic until I went to that rally that day. And I was hooked. And a few years later, another priest, Father Jeff, who's on our board, asked me if I would help out with it, just a couple of years ago, I think. So and here I am today.
So in between so many other things of being great fathers yourselves, you share the glory and the wealth of God's call. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Father Jacob, how did you get in? I know you well, and I know all the things you do, and you always got time for something else.
I remember my first experience with Catholic men was when I was a seminarian. I was studying for the priesthood, and some of the seminarians were asked if they wanted to take part in the Catholic men's rally. This was when it was at Brookdale. So I decided that I would go to the rally for my first time. And I remember I walked in and my father was there. I didn't know he was going to be there with one of my brothers. And then I saw my other brother, who's a priest now in the diocese, and my nephews were there, and then so many other men that I knew from throughout the diocese. So, my first experience was great. When I walked in, Father Stan Fortuna, who's a priest with the CFRs in New York, was talking. And as a seminarian, I remember listening to him and really just being encouraged by his words. So that was really my first experience. And then as I got to be a priest, began to work more officially with the Catholic men. So.
Sounds like with all your family that were there, you could start your own conference. It's kind of nice. Tell me a little bit about it's an annual conference, right? Tell me a little bit about that and the history of this conference and of the men coming together to share their stories and to invite others to share their stories.
Sure, I guess I'll run with that.
Sure.
It was kind of a brainchild of a group of men that met at Kelly's Tavern in Neptune. They would meet on Sundays for breakfast.
I knew that place when I was a very young man.
I don't know about Sunday morning, right? But they'd get together and they'd share their faith and so forth. And again, Jim Manhart was one of the leaders of that group. And at one point, the Holy Spirit, I guess, came about them. And they said, we need to start an organization for men. Fathers are disappearing. If you just walk down any street, inner city street, and you see baby carriages, you don't see dads. And they were inspired, and they actually had the first rally, I guess about 14, 15 years ago at I guess the first one was at CBA, right? And then it's grown from there, and we've had speakers really from all over the country and world come in and share their faith and so forth. And again, we've got involved kind of at the latter end of the rally, and our hopes is to actually take this up and make this a really pinnacle event in the diocese.
I think one of the interesting things too with the history was when it first began, it began as really the statewide men's conference, and that's really what Jim Manhart really envisioned. And I think it was so successful that now, the Archdiocese of Newark started their own men's rally. I believe the Diocese of Metuchen is looking to start a men's rally. So, throughout its history, I think Catholic Men for Jesus Christ has really become now the Diocese of Trenton men's rally because so many other dioceses saw the need and how successful it was, and they really did, emulate it or imitate it in their own diocese.
Well, that's terrific. That's how it all started.
Yes.
He
Kelly's
chose
Tavern.
12, and well, no, I don't think it started in I'm talking about going way back.
Foundation.
I don't know if Kelly was around then. You never know, though. You never know. Well, listen, how about this conference that's coming up? What's the plan? Who's speaking? What's the topics? Tell us all about it.
Well, we have 3 speakers. Pat Madrid, who we all know about well. He's written Surprised by the Truth. It's kind of my primer for those that are looking to come into the faith. And he's written many other books as well, Envoy Magazine, and he's going to be coming in. Father Jonathan Morris, who many people know from Fox News, and he's an accomplished author. And we also have a colleague of George in Daryl Miller. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about Daryl.
Sure, yeah. Daryl Miller currently works for Major League Baseball. He runs the Urban Youth Academy out in Los Angeles, and I first saw him on the Champions of Faith DVD, which was put out by Tom Allen at Catholic Exchange. And I heard Daryl speak, and he's a convert to the Catholic faith. His wife is Catholic, and he is a powerful speaker. He's on fire like the converts tend to be. And so I just picked up the phone, called the Major League Baseball Urban Youth Academy, and told them I work for the Yankees. So I said, this is George Rose from the Yankees calling, and I got a call back very quickly. And we started talking. He said, I'd love to do it. And Daryl has played Major League Baseball. He was a catcher for the California Angels back in the 70s and the early 80s. And he's also the brother of Reggie Miller, who played for the Pacers. And did a lot of damage to the Knicks back in the 90s. And
You're gonna be crying here, Jim.
yeah, and Cheryl Miller is his sister.
Sure, sure.
But he's a great speaker.
athletes.
He speaks all over the country for different men's conferences and retreats and things like that. And we're really lucky to get a caliber speaker like him to come out all the way to the East Coast to speak to us.
I think that's one of the best things about the men's conference. I mean, it's really drawn some of the best speakers, you know, in its history. And this year, I think is right in line with that. I mean, they're always just top-notch Catholic speakers, and I think that's one of the things the men's really like about coming to the conference is they know they're just going to get some really solid, good material that's really going to engage them.
We're also fortunate to have our bishop, who's going to be able to come speak and celebrate the Mass. So
Oh, that's
blessed in that sense.
that is terrific. Do you usually have a mass somewhere during the day or at the end?
Absolutely.
Yep. Pretty much every year we have a mass, and almost every year it's been done by the bishop. And we do surveys and feedback stuff at the end of the conference. And almost every year, overwhelmingly, the bishop comes out on top as what the men really like, hearing and having the presence of the bishop there. This year we're excited to have Bishop O'Connell again. He was there last year, obviously for the first time, and he'll be back again this year.
Well, it's exciting. Tell me about the day. What's the format? When is the day coming up, and how does it start?
February 25th, it's going to come. I'm gonna not get too much into the details because we want to surprise the attendees. We have some changes. We're throwing a little crinkle into it to make it a little bit different this year. But ultimately, it's men coming together, and in some sense, it's really the salt of the diocese. These are some of the greatest men, and our goal is to actually have them shine a little brighter because, you know, statistics have been done. There was a study done in a Swiss study, and they looked at children raised in households. If the mother took them to church, okay, the chances of them repeating were like 2% if dad wasn't there. However, if dad took them to Mass, the chances of them actually repeating were 44%, whether or not mom was there or not. So there's a role that men have, you know, as spiritual fathers that has kind of been, I don't know, suppressed. It's been attacked over the years, and we've come a long way from Leave It to Beaver, right? Now it's Al Bundy and Homer Simpson, and in many of these shows today in pop culture, dad's not even there. And I think society is really hurting because of that. So very important that the men of the diocese come and get fired up and get a spiritual shot in the arm. That was the words Jim always had for the rally, that this rally was a spiritual shot in the arm. And then take that back to their parish communities and begin to, if you will, spread the faith. Be ready to give a reason for their hope, in essence.
And there's lots of good men out there. There really are. Lots of good family men. I mean, I see it in parishes, and maybe you got to tap them a little bit and invite them, but there's a lot of great men out there. And I think you're dead on. Even just thinking back to my own growing up, so to speak, you know, there's something about dad that disciplines. Well, I don't know about today how it all works out, but there was always something about dad that you kind of reached up to, especially as a young boy growing up. You know, you probably had these conversations, or my generation's a lot older than your generation, but I still remember my dad can do this, or my dad can do that. You know? We put you dads on not only on a pedestal, but we tell everybody you got dads can do everything, you know? So that's terrific.
One other thing we should mention, Father, is about Monsignor, I apologize, is about the youth track that we have, which started last year. Dan Duddy, who's the head football coach at Monsignor Donovan, is in charge of the youth track.
He does a good job at that school, too, with the team.
He does.
Yeah.
He's amazing, and he's been speaking around the country this year at different rallies, and he's a powerful speaker in his own right. And you know, reason we moved the date up a week this year, it's the last Saturday in February before spring sports start, so that we could get a lot of the youth to come before football and all that kind of stuff starts. And really, if we're not growing within the teens and the young men in the parish, the rally will not grow the way that it should, you know. And so we're really making an effort to reach out to young men, especially high school men, and get them involved and expose them to things, speakers, and ways of thinking that they might not otherwise be exposed to.
On that note, we had 50 young men there last year, and we're hoping to have over 100 this year.
And this year the rally is going to be, we changed locations a lot, so we can kind of vary, you know, who has to drive from where. But this year it's going to be at where both of them belong, St. Raphael's Holy Angels Parish in Hamilton. And important plug, if guys actually want to register in advance, which is a big help for us, we got a great website where they can register to attend the rally. It's www.catholicmenforjesuschrist.org, right?
Right.
And there's lots of good resources on the website where they can find out more about the speakers and how to register.
About how many men do you get? It's hard to say, I guess, from year to year, but it's
It varies between, I would say, 450 to 600 men,
that's terrific.
somewhere in there.
Terrific. And do they? You get a lot of men come back that were there before?
I'd say the vast majority
Absolutely, yes.
of
Yeah.
men are actually returning.
One of the ways that we're trying to engage new men to start coming who may not have had the chance to go before is kind of start a new business-like structure. So each county in the diocese has a county rep who's responsible for trying to recruit the parishes within their county. And then what our long-term hope is that each parish will have a representative. Right now, each county has a number of parishes that do, but hopefully, within a couple years, every parish could have a rep, which would be great. But these county reps are really influential in spreading the word within each county and getting the word out about the rally.
I'm just thinking, with society the way it is today and families, you fathers and you, Father, you're just always, there's so much going on, from what I hear and talking to other families, the children are involved in all kinds of sports. I guess what I'm thinking about is that what you're doing, I think, is so essential because I don't know if men have the time to, even though we invite them to go on retreats and things, this seems to be able to give them I don't want to say that shot in the arm, or give them that feeling that and maybe throw them onto something else. But it does allow them to say, okay, what is that, a Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Saturdays are pretty important, I think, for a lot of men who work pretty hard and travel a lot. And, some of the men, don't come home from work until 7, 8 o'clock at night. So it's a great opportunity for them to do that, isn't it? Huh?
It's also a great opportunity for them to spend time with their sons,
Yeah,
where appropriate, that we want to encourage that as well.
yeah. So what do you hope that they get out of it, besides a good, solid day of spirituality? I mean, go back to their parish, as Father said. Anything else?
Yeah, I think what we really hope they get out of it is they get energized and enthused about their faith. I think just coming together and seeing 400 other men, openly practicing and expressing their faith, I think that really just boosts up their own confidence to really live their faith. And another thing we really try and do is there's a lot of great men's groups throughout the diocese, and we really try and work with them so that hopefully as men leave, they might think about joining a men's group in their parish or somewhere, close to their parish and get involved that way.
Might even be a nice connection somehow to link it all up, because I know there are a lot of men's prayer groups and
Sure.
and a lot of I guess when men get together,
Mm-hmm.
we don't just talk sports, do we,
No.
George? Although we talk a lot of sports, but it's interesting, I think, for men to not just for that one day, but to get back to have other men they can talk to about, hey, how do we do business with Catholic principles, Christian principles?
Yeah.
Because a lot of things pop up in their lives of decisions that have to get made. And I'm just thinking of a gentleman now that I happen to know who is a marvelous guy, and he's a doctor and he's done well in his profession in the business that he's in, and called me maybe 3-4 months ago and just said they made a big decision, to not incorporate a certain part of the business because of they wanted to use stem cells, and he said no, we don't do that. And yet so men need that kind of support to do that kind of stuff. It's not easy out there.
They do. In fact, that's a big part of what we're trying to do. We want them to go back to their parishes where appropriate, to either join the men's group, because we actually have quite a few of them linked on our website, to link them so they know. And if not, start one. And they have the resource of us to be able to help them in that task as well.
Good stuff. What is there a follow-up? I mean, it's not just a day. I mean, what do you do for the follow-up?
It really, for our part, it really does tend to be very focused on the day, the day of the conference. But what we really hope the follow-up is just by linking them to men's groups throughout the diocese, that those men's groups can really be a big part of the follow-up, and hopefully just their own parish can be a big part of their follow-up.
Any stories? I'm a big story man. Whatever story you tell me is going to be in the homily this weekend. Any stories about?
I think Father actually had some interesting
Yeah, I think
stories.
this past year, starting the youth track for the first time, I think was really where we saw some great witnesses happen. Dan Duddy brought a lot of his football teams. We brought some of our college guys there. And just watching, young men really kind of tap into the faith really for the first time, and just to kind of watch them, go deeper in their faith was important. The student from Rider University that came back and told me it just really strengthened him so much to see, the football coach talking about his faith and living his faith, and how much that really just, strengthened him. He's a soccer player at Rider, so just seeing guys that were sportsmen come together really affected him a lot.
Yeah, there was some of these boys were moved to tears. It was very, very powerful. And even the men, the fact that they're coming together and there are other men that think the same way. No man is an island, and all too often we're on our own, and Christ sent them 2 by 2, I think for a reason. And guys need to come together, and this is a great way of starting that process, and we hope that it continues. And in the future, if the organization can grow, we could actually maybe even take it beyond that, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, again, when I think back to, say my generation, my dad, grandpa, the families, I mean, men were a little closer because, they didn't travel as far. They all worked in the same area. I mean, there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So I think we need something that's going to do the stuff you're doing, but do it in a great way.
I think when men come together, something just happens. Having worked, with Bill at my first parish at the men's group, and now with our college men's group, when men kind of just get to a point where they're, with a group of other men, they just start sharing stuff that they probably wouldn't share, elsewhere, and they start talking about stuff, like you were saying, in the business world that maybe they shouldn't be doing, and it really just strengthens them to live the faith when they get encouraged by other men to do the same. And so I think that's just so key for men, just to see other men really stepping up and practicing and living the faith, and that really goes a long way for them.
In an article in our Sunday Visitor, Father Larry Richards, author of the book, Be a Man, Becoming the Man God Created You to Be, and as you mentioned, I think he's going to be a speaker at this year's conference, stated, as a church, we're realizing that men are different than women. Not better, but different, and need to be ministered to in a different way.
Yeah, agree with that statement wholeheartedly. We are different, and our dignity, I believe, has been suppressed, if you will, and it's absent right now. And for men to be what they're supposed to be, they need to have that unity, that connection. I mentioned that study, and the father plays a critical role. Paul Vitch actually wrote some books on this, Faith of the Fatherless, where he looked at history's greatest theists, if you will, the Kierkegaards, the Chestertons, and then he looked at the great atheists, the Marx, the Lenin, the Nietzsche, all these people. And what he found was so interesting was that the theists, the lovers of God, those that were productive in society in great ways, had a very loving, nurturing father. On the other hand, the atheists had an absent father, an abusive father, or no father. There's something there, and it translates across the spectrum.
I like that. We don't need a wimpy Christianity. Working with young people, college and high school, I see that all the time. They say if you ask a young person to give you a little bit, he'll give you nothing. But if you ask a young person to give you everything, he'll step up. And with young people, that could not be true. If you kind of water things down and don't really challenge them, they don't respond that well. But if you put a high ideal there, high ideal there, they really do respond so much more strongly to that. And so I think with the young people at the men's conference, that high ideal is put before them, and they respond because that's what they want. They want that strong challenge, and they want to step up to that strong challenge.
Well, that's so true, so true. I mean, you go back into all of your athletic teams that have been strong. You even look at military. I mean, whenever there's that challenge to say, in fact, I remember my mom always said to me, whenever we tell you you can't do it, somehow you always find a way to do it. So maybe that's the answer. That's the answer. Father Richards also said, I'm sick of wimpy men. You mentioned that, Father, huh? And we're called to a leadership of love and service. A true man is willing to lay down his life for something greater than himself. Boy, that's gut stuff, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, I remember Father Larry, I was watching the video. He spoke at last year's conference, and he really admonished the men, too. He was very strong in saying that you need to be sharing your talents with the church and with your faith. And if you're not, then you need to think hard about what you're doing. Your talents are not just for you, your own glory, or for your family. They should be working for God's glory and sharing them. And I think we're so busy in the work world these days, and it's hard out there in the economy to make a living, that we need to be reminded of that sometimes, I think, to be able to reach out to our church more.
I told some people just yesterday that there were some doctors and other people there. I said, we're all roofers. You know, no matter what your vocation is, we're all called to be a roofer. You know, and you know the gospel story. You know, we got to help people and take the. You know, that's we're all roofers. Steve Wood, I think, is another speaker at your conference. Was also quoted in a Sunday Visit article, and he stressed that men should maintain positive relationship with God, their wives, and children, while avoiding things that would harm these relationships. What's most harmful? 3 things, said Wood: pornography. Pornography, pornography.
Yeah.
Is that the biggest industry in the world? Is that what I hear?
It's the silent epidemic, is what everyone says, you know, and I think it's something that it's difficult for men to talk about. You know, how do you even start that conversation with men sometimes? And I think at a rally like this, we bring things up like that.
Sure.
If men are struggling, I have some experience with Tabor House in Trenton with men that struggle with addiction and alcoholism, and pornography is certainly an addiction as well. And this can help men establish some relationships to speak about that kind of thing, because they're being challenged on it to begin with. Sometimes out in the world, it's acceptable. You know, I think what was back in the 70s when I grew up would have been pornographic is now a commercial for TV. So our standards have changed so much that...
And George, take that back to my generation.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean, you'd almost have a fight if somebody said a word that today everybody just...
And I think that's why men of faith really need to come together, because when they're in the work world, you know, so much of what we believe as a church is kind of seen as outdated, irrelevant, and even something like pornography, it is just so prevalent and accepted that they really need to come together and be strengthened by others who believe something similar, so that they don't feel alone in that fight.
Guys, I wish we had more time, but quickly, I know there are some men watching us that maybe don't go to church, maybe they're, you know, where the faith is. Why should they come?
You will get excited about your faith if you come to this day. In a nutshell, I think you'll get very excited.
Power in numbers.
And the strength of Jesus.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I love you. God, you know, I just get chills just talking to you guys. Thank you very, very much. And Father, keep them busy. Okay?
Thank you, Monsignor.
For more information on Catholic Men for Jesus Christ, go to www.catholicmenforjesuschrist.org. Can't forget it. Come. Look in your heart. Be challenged. Be blessed. Join them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Monsignor.
Monsignor.
It's good stuff.